Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have back in the studio with us today Rebecca Bender, and she's brought with her a very special guest, Olivia Henderson, and we're going to be dealing with the subject of sex trafficking. So if you got some little ones, you may want to find something for them to do in another room. So it's a very delicate topic, but one that we need to continue to talk about. So Rebecca, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having us
again.
again.
Yeah, and Olivia, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. You know, this subject is just getting more and more attention, rightfully so.
Yes.
And I'm delighted to see this. You know, in some ways, it's kind of like the abortion argument. It was there. We really weren't talking about it. Now it's front and center. Mm-hmm. And this subject has really become a great concern. And what's really interesting to me is the numbers even in Southern Oregon, which I'm sure you can talk about a little bit, Rebecca. By the way, a website that you can go to for some great resources, RebeccaBender.org, okay? That's the website, RebeccaBender.org. Give us a little bit of an update.
Well, we've just, been honored that the Lord is continuing to expand our tent pegs, and the work that we do is, obviously, we mentor a lot of girls here in Southern Oregon, but our mentoring program has extended nationally. We've been in about 10 different states now, and we've been being asked by a variety of other countries even to mentor some of their survivors via Skype, and then help develop curriculum for safe homes all across the world, which is how we got into working with ISIS refugees.
Mm-hmm.
ISIS refugees, and that's where you come in.
Yes.
Introduce Olivia and tell us about her.
Yeah, so Olivia is one of our missionaries. She was our first girl actually to go work actually in the safe home in Iraq with the refugees.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell us about it. What do you do over there?
Well, we were in a home all together where groups of refugees would come in that had escaped from ISIS sex slavery, all with such amazing escape stories. You know that God's hand is in it, it's like Mission Impossible movies. But we basically gave them first level trauma care and just loved on them, and were the hands and feet of Jesus, just serving them in any way that we could. We could not evangelize or anything like that. We did have a government official in the home keeping tabs on that, but God still did amazing things.
I find it interesting that they would let you exist as an outreach to help these girls out, mm-hmm. Which is somewhat contrary to what we would think, in that this goes on so much over there that it would be allowed. I mean, it seems almost like an oxymoron. Is that true?
Yes, but there's just such a huge need for help. There's over 5,000 girls that are currently needing a home for someone to just take care of them, that are in refugee camps or still in captivity. So the need is so big that the government is letting other countries and people groups come in and help in any way that they can.
How young?
Our youngest that we received was 10 years old.
My stars.
Yeah, all the way up to 38 years old was the oldest. Well, I was there for 3 groups, 3 different groups.
Rebecca, is there any similarities in what she's dealing with in Iraq and what you're dealing with in Southern Oregon or around the country?
I mean, it's hard because sex trafficking is heinous regardless of where and what demographic. Obviously, when we're working with first world developed, countries like America, right, sex trafficking is going to look a little bit different. What ISIS is doing is just such pure evil that it's hard to compare that sometimes to other things that are going on. Brutal rapes of 9 and 10-year-old girls is horrific. Sex trafficking overall is horrific, but we do see a little bit of a difference between first world and third world. Men here in America that pretend to be 14-year-old girls' boyfriends and then lure them to be isolated and then force them into sex trafficking is very different than having a man plummet your village and murder your dad and your brothers and take you and force you into a forced marriage. I mean, it's very different. Complex trauma there's a huge spectrum of complex trauma. So where did the girl, in her specific individual case, where does she fall on that spectrum? And that's kind of what people who specialize in sex trafficking, that's what we work to do. We do individual case management. So we look at the trauma that's specific to each girl and help, through the Holy Spirit, for us, we help bring restoration based on her situation.
So Olivia, you're not allowed to express your faith openly, but indirectly.
Indirectly.
How does that work?
For me, it was really just being there for them and interceding for them, constantly covering them in prayers, and really almost like when Elijah was done with the prophets of Baal, and he had brought fire down from heaven, and Jezebel went out to get him afterward, and he kind of had like that meltdown, and the Lord gave him food and helped him rest. So it was basically what we were doing for those girls, just letting them rest, letting them know that they have hope again, that they have a future, and we know that God will heal them, that God has a plan for them. I have faith that I will see them in the wedding feast, but it's mainly just letting them know, like, you have a future and you have a hope.
You know, I don't think any of us understand the trauma of sex trafficking, whether it's first world or third world. But if you don't see divine intervention in healing these girls, there's very little hope for them, isn't there?
Yeah, Jesus is the only one. Tell him what you did with the boyfriend when the little girl asked you who your boyfriend was.
So we had 2 12-year-olds in the last group that I was there for, and 1 10-year-old. So I kind of watched over the younger ones while the other staff helped with some of the older girls in the group. And I remember the girls kept on asking me, "Who's your habibi? Who's your boyfriend?" And I didn't know what to say, so I just said, I was like, "Jesus is my boyfriend." Because it's
How'd that go over?
Yeah. Bringing it in when you can. Yeah. Bringing it in when you can.
Is sex trafficking a crime in Iraq?
To the Muslim community, so I was in Kurdistan, northern Iraq. There's Christians, there's Catholics.
Oh, you're in Kurdistan. Okay.
Muslims,
okay.
Yes. I was 1 hour.
Kurdistan would ask for help.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Although we still dealt with Iraqi government.
Right.
We were 1 hour away from ISIS headquarters, so.
1 hour drive.
1 hour drive. But.
Is it a crime?
It just depends. It is a crime, although there is a lot of prostitution there. Primarily what I was in a Muslim community primarily. But.
Because I think what I'm trying to bridge in my mind, and maybe you can help us too, Rebecca, is from what I understand, the culture for women in Islamic countries is entirely different than what it would be here in the United States. Just how women are perceived in general, which reeks with hypocrisy when it comes to equal rights and helping women, and you know, where is our government in trying to speak out to help what you do versus what's going on here. But what I'm trying to figure out in my mind is that as horrible as it is, the overall subject is, to go after a 10-year-old, and I realize it goes up from there, but we hear this quite often. I don't know if we're processing it, Olivia, in our heads. We're not processing it in our minds and hearts, that young girls are taken out of the home, and if a brother or a father tries to resist it, they're beheaded. I mean, we're not processing this evil.
No. But it's all coming from Satan. So we know that he is out to kill and destroy, and he will do that in any way that he can. Mm-hmm. So thinking of it as a sense spiritually, knowing, okay, that makes sense. Like, we can process that. We know that about him. But that God is yet greater, and that Jesus conquered it all on the cross, and he can heal all. So yes, it is happening. There's even younger than 10-year-olds that this is happening to. But God hears their cries. That's the thing, is he hears them. A people group who don't even call upon his name, who don't know Jesus yet, have experienced him, but they don't know him yet. So he still goes and sends his precious children to go and take care of them.
Wow.
Some of the women in Kurdistan that have been targeted are the Yazidi culture, which is their own religion, as I'm sure you probably are aware. So because they're considered devil worshippers, because they feel that God showed Satan grace when he repented from becoming prideful, that's part of their religion. And so that term Yazidi actually means devil worshipper, just because they feel that Satan was forgave and accepted back into the fold. So that's who ISIS is targeted, because out of, like you're saying, there is this caste system, both in the Muslim culture and then also for women. So they really have, Yazidis are the lowest on the Muslim caste system. And so ISIS has targeted them specifically. They do feel like in their religion that those women are their property, that they're able to be used as cattle, to be able to be sold to other men as wives, and then forced to have more children and to continue to spread their culture, which obviously we don't believe is accurate as a human rights movement.
Yeah, it doesn't even compute.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
and it is hard to process. Where are we? Where's Americans? And the Kurdish people love Americans. You know, Jimmy Carter, who you guys just gave updates on, he was one of the first presidents to help Kurdistan, and he did amazing work there.
He was, and then George Bush Sr. created the no-fly zone, which actually gave Kurdistan the chance to exist.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Olivia, before I take a break. Do you feel threatened by what you do over there? Is it dangerous work? I mean, I realize the government wants you there, but I don't think ISIS wants you there.
No, of course not. But the Lord gives you peace for it. I mean, coming back now and realizing where I was on the map compared to where they were, I was like, whoa, that didn't really hit me while I was there. But he covers you in his peace and just gives you just a revelation how sovereign he is, and that he can do anything he wants.
Wow.
You know?
All right, let me take a quick break. We're talking about sex trafficking, and folks, it's not just in Iraq. It's right up and down the I-5 corridor here in Southern Oregon, Northern California, and Rebecca is one of the great warriors of this cause. So her website is RebeccaBender.org for resources. So let me take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
We're back with Rebecca Bender and Olivia Henderson, and they are both ministers into the whole issue of sex trafficking. Rebecca Bender is from Southern Oregon, and her website is RebeccaBender.org. And Olivia Henderson here, who has just returned from Iraq, where she's dealing with sex trafficking over there, which is a whole nother level of trying to get my head around it. We were discussing between the break that the sex trade in Iraq is different than the sex trade in America. I don't know, maybe you can highlight that, Rebecca, because there they don't have it openly like we do here, so to speak.
Yeah, well, in America we have obviously the crime of prostitution, and so you're going to find predators that lure on vulnerable girls and force them into the crime of prostitution. And then we also have seen women who are pro-sex workers, so they have chosen to go into the sex industry without someone forcing them to. So you do get this controversy between the two groups, like anti-trafficking groups and pro-sex worker groups that fight for change in law. And because we find that the majority of women involved in prostitution are forced to be there. That is the majority. It's not like that in Iraq.
No.
There's no pro-sex workers in Iraq.
Okay. So how are you and Olivia working together? What are you trying to do to help her?
Yeah, so we did an event at Edgewater Youth Group a while back, and Olivia was there and heard me share my testimony. And at that time, I was working with an organization in Iraq, helping them develop their curriculum, and I trained all their missionaries that were going to be deployed. After that, they called me and said, we really need a girl that can live in the safe home for Cycle 1, which is their very first group of girls that are being brought in from refugee camps. So there's thousands of people living in refugee camps in Iraq, and out of that refugee camp staff, they're identifying the most horrific girls who have experienced the most horrific trauma, and then they're choosing them to go into this safe home that Olivia ended up being at. But that safe home was what I was helping develop curriculum, and I trained all of those missionaries for. So when they reached out to us, I asked my husband if I could go, and of course he said no. So Olivia started working for us shortly after that, and we were in the office one day, and I just said, hey, do you want to go to Iraq? And she's like, let me pray about it. And she got on fire for it, and we got her trained and ready, and she went. So.
And she's going to go back in October, and you're doing some speaking around churches. If you'd like to have them come and talk to your group, they'll do that. They're raising the funds to send you back. How long will you go back for?
Well, right now, it would be, my next step would be urban missions. So within the U.S., I would be going to safe homes, working with sex traffic victims. So I'm looking at a 6-month internship within the U.S.
Wow. Give us an update, Rebecca, on the issue here. I think sometimes we just hear these numbers and they come in and go out, but give us some update.
Yeah, well, Oregon actually is a forerunner in the fight against sex trafficking. We have some of the best law enforcement around in our state.
Great.
Recently, we actually went to Atlanta, went to the Carter Center and worked with Jimmy Carter at the World Summit to help train law enforcement on what are some next steps in the next 5 years. Where do we want to see the anti-trafficking movement? And I was really excited to be the survivor leader on that law enforcement track. But within that group, we ended up having a ton of law enforcement from Oregon. Wow. And so we really are forerunners in the fight. Numbers are still here, they're still high. On average, we have on average 30 to 35 women for sale a night in Jackson and Josephine County. Portland's numbers are a lot higher. They have identified, the last research showed about 450, give or take, children identified on the foster care system that had been exploited. And that's just the numbers that you know of. Usually for every one, there's 4 or 5 girls that we just don't know of yet. So numbers are high, but Oregon is making an effort, and we're doing our part. So that's exciting. It's sad, and it's also exciting.
And Redemption Ridge coming into the picture to be a safe place.
Yeah. Redemption Ridge is doing work to open the first safe home for minors in the state of Oregon. They're making a lot of headway. We'll be doing an awareness event in September in Grants Pass with them, and just working collaboratively as we raise awareness nationally to let people know that there is a safe home in our state that's going to be able to take minors, and praying that work continues to be supported financially and resources to be able to open and bring kids.
How's this changed your life, Olivia?
In so many ways, but I think it's just really broadened my perspective on who God is and how much He loves us, like how much He just loves everyone, and that He wants us all to know Him and who our Father truly is, and that He really does send out His light out into the darkness, and that He really does want to make Himself a refuge for everyone, for all the lost and broken and the ones who follow Him. And just His love, I think, really brought the picture.
It's hard for us to understand, and Rebecca, this is perhaps where your testimony comes in, is the mental, emotional process that one goes through that's being rescued. I don't think we have any idea what that's like.
No, and you don't. It's like it's hard when we tell people that people want to help, and I think sometimes the most helpful statement can be, I don't have a clue what it's like to walk in your shoes. I don't know what it's like to be raped and beaten, but I do know that there is hope and that God can change your heart and your mind. That for me has been the best statement that an outsider has said to me, to make me feel like it's okay to know what it is like. It is okay to have gone through that and yet have someone from the outside want to help you. And I know for me personally that God radically changed my heart and my mind within moments of salvation. And we've seen that in Iraq with Olivia. Her testimonies have just aligned with my own personal story as well. We were really concerned when the Iraqi government only allowed 10 days. They took the girls from the refugee camp and gave Olivia only 10 days. And then they'd send them back to the camp and bring in another cycle of girls for another 10 days. She went through 3 cycles. And she can testify, but the Lord gave her a great word about time. When we were really nervous, we began praying, Lord, what are we going to do in 10 days for the girls that have experienced this type of brutal sexual brutality?
What did he say?
He said, Olivia, I have confined you in time, but you cannot confine me in time. He can do whatever he wants in whatever amount of time he chooses.
He's timeless.
Yeah, you saw girls change, just evolve within an hour, like going from self-harm to wanting to go and seek an education and speak for people and let them know what's going on in their lives.
And that's a double whammy because women aren't allowed to speak, but they do one-on-one, don't they?
Yes.
Yes. Doing one-on-one work.
How do you convey that God loves you when they probably question why God allowed this to happen to them? How do you bridge that one?
You see that with every victim, whether it's American or third world country. A lot of girls end up feeling, and I have felt that. I remember praying to God and say, you know, how come that girl was given a silver spoon and I was given this broken McDonald's fork? It doesn't seem fair that I ended up having this happen to me, why other people live their lives so perfectly.
Yeah.
And all I can remember is the Lord just saying, because you are strong enough to get through. And that's all I can keep conveying to other women when I encounter them and other young girls. And they ask that, every single victim asks that very question, Mary, is why me? Why would God do this if he loves me? And usually it's because everything that the enemy intends for harm, God is going to turn around for his honor and his glory. And he knows the plans that he has for you, and they're great, and they're full of hope. And we just encourage them to use that, to not let what happened to them silence them.
God doesn't waste anything, even our tears. You know, they're all inventoried, so to speak, and used. I've often said, and quite often said, whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he turns around and makes you a minister to. Takes one to know one, so to speak,
Yep,
you know,
exactly.
and that's kind of what's happening here. Do you think we are making progress, say in the United States, of getting parents to be more educated in this issue? Because there are young girls out there being cool and they're texting and doing all this stuff, and they're just primed to be harvested, so to speak.
Absolutely. Prevention is going to be key to eradicating modern day slavery in America. And people don't even think that it exists. And clearly we've made a lot of headway by doing awareness events and even things like this, you know, help to contribute, making people aware that this doesn't just happen in Iraq or in Cambodia or Thailand. This is happening in our very country, in our very state, and even in our own small communities. And so bringing prevention in, I mean, we do prevention nights. We go into youth groups and churches and communities all across the U.S. I'm flying to Phoenix tomorrow to do a Date with Your Daughter night in the city of Phoenix. The mayor will be there. It's all about prevention, all about bringing your daughter to an event to teach her how to be safe, what to look for. Is that boy you're dating really what are his intentions? And just bringing prevention. I mean, that's going to be huge in stopping this issue.
When are we going to turn the table and put the crime on buying sex rather than selling it?
It's a great question, and that's actually the huge shift that the Carter Center, he took an initiative. Jimmy Carter said he's going to dedicate the rest of his life to eradicating sex trafficking in America. And so the Carter Center began that tipping point, and with Shared Hope International, that's become the focus. And that was our entire, 3-day World Summit was focusing on ending demand. Why are men not being the ones being arrested? Why are the victims being arrested? And how can we begin making that shift? And Oregon has done a great job. I know our detective here in Medford, Detective Jim Williams, he does a great job at getting girls into services, getting them resources, and going after the buyer and the trafficker. So we're making some headway, and I do see that pendulum beginning to shift. So.
Well, you're both an inspiration, Rebecca and Olivia. Good to see you, and let's stay in touch and see how it goes. You're getting ready to get back out in October. Let me just say to our viewers and listeners, if you'd like Rebecca and Olivia to come and speak at your organization, go to RebeccaBender.org, probably the best way to connect with her, and that's a great resource for you as well. An incredible thing, and it's happening right here in Southern Oregon, throughout the entire state. So we can't turn our heads and just wish it go away. We have to get involved, and prevention is the big key. So thank you both for coming in, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see us again real soon.
Thanks.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776 5368.
Welcome back, and always a delight to have with us our good friend Dr. Paul Kreitz. And again, drpaulkreitz.com is his website, and he is president of a Bible college, pastor of a church. He leaps tall buildings. He eats raw meat. He's a good guy. Hi, Paul. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, not as much raw meat as I used to, but I'm doing very well, Perry. Great to see you. You know, we're coming into that busy time of the year running a Christian university, and got a lot of activities that are going, and I'm dashing out the door after this interview. But what a blessing to be with you today and to talk to our listeners about a subject that is coming out of my first book, Discovering the Power of Purpose. You know, your purpose is your discovery, not your decision. And so when you discover your purpose and you start moving through life, you discover that you need some people to help you along life's path. And those people are called mentors. And that's what we're going to talk about today out of my book, Discovering the Power of Purpose.
Well, you know, Scripture says, I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. It's plans to help you, not to harm you. Ephesians says, you know, he laid things out in advance for us. So God has something in mind for us to get in sync with His purpose. I've seen more and more people, and you see this a lot, Paul, where people all of a sudden discover, like you said, that God actually has a plan and a purpose for their life. And once they get in sync with that, how fulfilling it really, really is. And it's like me. I love what I'm doing. It's hard work, like you. It's hard work. Nobody understands the struggles of it. But you know you're doing what you're called to do. You just know it.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a lot of people tell me, no, you need to go here. You need to take this position. You need to pastor that church. And I go, no, I'm doing what I was called to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, at some point you realize that you don't have all the answers. You don't know every avenue to take. I've written, you know, I'm working on 2 new books, and I've written a number of books, and a lot of them are filled with wisdom and understanding, like this purpose book. And someone said, Dr. Kreitz, how did you get to be so smart? I said, it's because I used to be so dumb. And I just got tired of being stupid. You know, Perry, the worst part about being stupid is you're the last to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah. You know, what are friends for?
Yeah. You bring up the subject, Paul, of mentors. What's so interesting about this topic, and you and I probably could do a whole hour on it, I've been reading a lot about generational science and research, and today a lot of people don't need mentors because if they have a question, they can go to their phone and get the answer. And what's falling through the crack is the wisdom of the elderly being passed on to the youth.
Well, 2 Timothy 2:2, you know, Paul is talking to a young guy named Timothy, and Timothy had access to all the great teachers and leaders of his day, and he was teaching him how to be an effective leader. And he said, those things that you've heard and seen me do, I want you to entrust those to faithful men. I call them FAT, faithful, available, and teachable. Faithful, available, and teachable. You know, the unteachable will always be unhappy. There's a pastor listening to me now, and you just need to know that the unteachable will always be unhappy. You know, you can't solve the problems of the unteachable. But man, if you are willing to learn today, yes, there's Google, and yes, there's schooling, and yes, there's career counseling. There's all kinds of things. But there's something very, very specific about discovering your purpose, finding someone else that has walked and laid the steps ahead of you. You know, there's only 2 ways to learn, Perry, mistakes and mentors. There's no great success. There's nothing you learn from the second kick of a horse. You've got to understand there's only 2 ways. Someone said to me, well, Dr. Kreitz, I have an advanced degree from the School of Hard Knocks. And I thought, and you're bragging about that? Really?
All right, so there's a lot of books on mentoring, and you've even mentioned it in your book. How do we know what a good mentor is?
Well, it's real simple. A mentor is not your cheerleader. Your mentor is your coach. A cheerleader, your friends are all happy with your present. A coach is very interested in your future. A mentor is like a coach. They're focused on where you're going, not on where you've been. In fact, it's like coming to Christ. Your past has very little relevance to your future. God extinguishes it. He covers it with his blood. He gives you a new beginning. You have a plan and purpose in the mind of God waiting to be unfulfilled, waiting to be fulfilled. And it's in those moments of feeling unfulfilled that you become frustrated and discouraged, and you say, I believe I know what I'm supposed to do. I just don't know how to get there. And that's why God created mentors.
Are we good listeners? And the reason I asked that question, I saw something the other day that stuck with me. I was learning, believe it or not. It said this: do you listen to learn, or do you listen to reply?
Well, a good protege, and that's someone who studies under a mentor, is going to listen. Let me tell you about my first experience, Perry, with my first mentor. And if I mentioned his name, you would know his name. Most of Christendom would know his name. And I had admired him greatly from a distance, and I always wanted to spend time with him. I heard he was going to be at a Christian television station in Orlando, Florida. I made arrangements with his team to get 10 minutes, and my 10 minutes was going to be in the makeup room as they were prepping him for an interview on this Christian television network. As a young man, I walked in there and I brought a couple sheets of paper with my background on it because I was sure that he'd want to know about me. But unfortunately, I asked him the first question, and here it was: what is the most important thing I need to know in talking with you today? I thought that was a good question. And his answer was, never come before me without pen and paper or a recorder, or you're just wasting my time.
What did that teach you?
That taught me that if you're going to be mentored, you don't do the talking, you do the listening. If you're going to be mentored, don't waste your mentor's time with your talents and your achievements. Find out how you can move forward in life. Learn from the greatness of others. Oh, can I tell you, I could talk all day about learning from the greatness of others. Learn from their great mistakes, learn from their great achievements, but learn the greatness from others.
How do you go about selecting a mentor who will be trustworthy and effective?
Well, I believe there is a divine connection that takes place. I really have found this to be in my life, for the people that have mentored me, and for the many, many people that I've had the opportunity to mentor in ministry, in my academic side, just in learning how to be a success in life. And they will hear something. If you will affix your ear, it's like hearing by the Spirit. You hear something when that person speaks. Remember when Elisha saw Elijah coming by? He heard something. He acted upon it. He said, you're going to be my mentor. I'm going to follow you. He didn't know he was going to get a double portion. He didn't know the outcome, but he made a decision to be mentored. Paul mentored Timothy. Paul mentored Titus. It's very important that we hear something that connects inside of us to the voice of our mentor.
Isn't mentoring also surrendering to accountability?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the greatest needs of our generation and of this hour is the arena of accountability. And so it's very, very important that that you be upfront with your mentor and that you be honest and you be transparent with them, because you're just wasting everyone's time if you're not. And let that mentor hold you accountable. I will tell a protege of mine, I need you to read this book. Or like one of my mentors said, you know, there was a man at a banquet and he was going around boasting that this person was his mentor. And they said, is he your mentor? We hear him talking about that. And the wise mentor said, I don't know. I haven't corrected him yet.
Paul, you do mentoring calls quite often. And I want to be careful here because I didn't clear this before you, but if somebody was interested in being mentored to you, is that probably the entryway to do that?
Yes, I do a mentoring call every Sunday live, Sunday evening, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock on the West Coast. I do a live mentoring call for about 25 minutes. I pray a lot about it. I have a lot of people that come on the call, and then you can find out about the call. If you missed it, you can go back and get the replay number. And I have no reluctance to give out that information or leave that information with the station if somebody wants to call in and get that phone number and the time. And I will email that to your producer or some of your staff, or we can talk after this call. But what's important is that you discern. You discern. I can listen and tell you the voices that you're listening to. I can listen. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I can listen in just a short period of time. I can discern like that who you're listening to. I can tell if you're listening to a foolish person. I can tell if you believe you know about finances and you really don't. You've just been talking to your crazy cousin who thinks they know about finances. I can discern in a moment, because it's so important that you surround yourself with the right voices. And today, it's so important that you discover mentorship for your life. Some of it's costly, but you know, you can be mentored by a book. I wrote this book. You can be mentored by a book. You can be mentored by a CD series. And do you know that all the time I'm being mentored? I'm constantly plugging in on my computer like you are and listening. But God will use anyone to be a mentor in your life. You've got to learn how to chew the meat and spit out the bones. Maybe they don't agree doctrinally or philosophically with everything you believe, but they've got some great secrets that they could share in your life. Remember, his name was Saul. He was the tormentor of the church, and then he became Paul, the mentor of the church. But let me say this last thing. You know who the number one mentor is on the earth? That's the Holy Spirit. The greatest mentor you'll ever have is listening to the Holy Spirit.
Let me take a break here. Dr. Paul Krites, CRITES.com is the website. And hold up the book there, Paul. Which one is it?
It's called Discovering the Power of Purpose.
All right. And you can go to his website there, drpaulkrites.com, and order that book. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back with our good friend Dr. Paul Krites, and we're talking about his book that really is one of his beginning books that still has incredible value. And I think one of those resource books you're going to want in your library is called Discovering the Power of Purpose. And there's a picture of it up there on the screen for those watching on theDove TV. You can go to drpaulkrites, CRITES.com, and order the book, and he'll get it out to you right away. I think so often we drift. There's an old saying, Paul, too soon stupid, too late smart. I'm sure you've never dealt with that one. But let me ask you this about mentoring, because it really is in this fast, high-tech digital world that we live in, we're not reaching out to peoples, we're reaching out to our devices to get information. Is it okay to ask someone to be your mentor?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And even in this high-tech, high digital devices age, if you will find successful people, I am never surprised anymore. I will watch someone, I mean a famous, successful business person, speaker, teacher, minister, and if you do enough research, you will find they all have a key person that came into their life at a strategic moment. You know, your mentor's entry into your life represents a miracle, a modern day miracle. A mentor's entrance into your life represents a change in the season over your life. Someone's listening to us right now and you say, I just can't change the seasons. I've studied, I've prayed, I've given of myself. I don't know what the missing key is. I want to give you the key today to unlock the door. The key to unlock the door is finding a mentor. Someone who knows what you don't know. Someone who's been where you haven't been. Someone who's experienced what you've yet to experience. A mentor can save you hundreds of hours of pain and frustration. That first mentor I was talking about in that TV studio went on to be my mentor and edited this first book that I'm talking about. Sat in the front seat of a car on the way to the airport. I sat in the back. I handed him my manuscript. He was tearing pages out. I thought I was going to die. He was tearing all these. He said, that belongs, that doesn't belong. And he said, this is the book. He said, this will touch lives. It's now in its fourth printing. And I'm telling you, it has impacted tens of hundreds of thousands of people. I get calls all the time. Perry, I get emails from people in other countries that we don't distribute this book in. How they got this book, I'm shocked and surprised. But they'll quote things out of the book and ask me to come speak or ask me to be connected to their ministry. But yes, you need to ask someone to be your mentor and be willing to reward that mentor for their time.
Okay, and I think that's significant because you can't all be takers, you got to be givers. Let me ask you this, Paul. Asking a mentor to come into your life and to speak into your life requires one of the hardest things for all of us to do, and that's to submit. Basically, shut up and listen. That's got to be a tough one to get over.
Well, if you get hungry enough,
yeah.
You know, I believe revelation is not just for the holy. I believe it's for the hungry.
Yeah, wow. That's a great word. You know, it's often been said the only two things will make you change is inspiration and desperation.
Well, and I want you to know, my brother, there have been some desperate moments in my nearly 40 years of public life, public ministry, writing, speaking, leading companies, leading a university, leading a ministry, leading churches, helping to plant churches. I've been to 40 nations. And if I did not have mentorship in my life, I was writing today my new book, and there are two keys, I believe, that have absolutely guided me to success. One is having a personal place of prayer, a room, a place in my life. Every home I've ever been in, I found a room or a corner, or I've built in one of the bays of the garage, or I've taken the back part of the house or something, and I've converted it into a private place. You know, someone says, "Why, Pastor, I go to my office." Well, you can't pray there. You're too vulnerable. There's too many people. There's too many interruptions. There's too many distractions. You've got to find a place to pray. And not just if you're a pastor, if you're in business, you need to find a place to pray. The first key was finding a place to pray. And the second key is what we're talking about today, mentorship. Is listening to wisdom, bringing wisdom. I always say, you know, whoever you're standing under is determined what you're understanding. Whoever you're standing under is bringing the understanding to your life.
Psalm 91 says, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So we all need that secret place.
Absolutely. And I've had one. The day I discovered about the secret place was a remarkable. The secret place birthed this book that I'm holding. It birthed my first mentor. It birthed my first national TV program. My secret place has birthed many, many great things in my public life and in my private life.
So, Paul, is there a plan that God has preordained for each one to fulfill?
Without question. Everybody comes to earth. They do not come to earth empty. No one comes to earth empty. Everyone comes with gifts, anointings, talents. Everyone comes to earth for something, for a purpose to be fulfilled. And once you discover your purpose, then the next most important question is, where am I assigned to make that happen? Where is that supposed to be? That's all coming out of my book, Discovering the Power of Purpose. I answer those questions about knowing your purpose and discovering your assignment. And then in this book, I talk about the miracle of mentorship. You've got to know that the words of your mentor are blessing you into your future, or the words of the thoughts of your mind are holding you captive in your present.
So often people are put into a position that's really a manufactured position by the circumstances and not necessarily God. I've seen the school teacher made the principal. No, they were called to be a school teacher, a classroom, not the principal. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people are advanced into the pastor's position, and that's not their calling. They are to be a Sunday school teacher. I mean, how do we know if we're misplaced?
Well, it's very easy to know you're misplaced because things are not working out for you. You were doing great here, and you say, well, I took the bonus, I took the increase, I took the raise, and I took the new position. Oh, I've talked to so many people that have said, should I take this position? I said, are you having great success? Are you still able to do what you want to do? Do you still have a sense of a life? Oh, yes. Well, have you measured this out, what's about to happen when you take this new position for a few more dollars, for a new office in the building?
Wow.
You need to think this through, because God created you in a purpose. He's given you an assignment, and I wouldn't change my assignment no matter how many people jumped up and down and lit their head on fire unless I knew it was God. And remember this, Barry, your assignment, there's always a provision in the place that God called you to be. God made places before he made faces, and there's always a provision. How do you know you're not in the right place? There is no provision. The provision dries up. So today, if you're listening to us, you've got to allow me to get some things into your head so we can change what's in your hand. And I want to get this book into your hand today. If you'll go to the website, as Perry said, paulkreitz.com, you'll order the book. I'll pay the shipping here in the United States. And I'm telling you, my books are all over the state of Oregon. I can tell you that because we are blessing so many people. But you know what? We're hearing from people who are saying, this is changing my life. It's impacting my life.
Paul, one last question before I run out of time. We've got less than a minute. In the midst of all of this, where does peace apply?
Peace is always the umpire. The umpire stands behind the catcher at the ball game. The pitch is thrown. The catcher catches it. The catcher says, what is that, a ball or a strike? And the umpire says, it's nothing till I say it is. Peace is the umpire. Peace is the umpire. You know when peace hits your life that you've got some good things coming across your plate.
Beautifully said. All right, here's what you do, folks. You go to Paul Kreitz, that's CRITES.com, order the book. He'll pay the shipping back. There's a picture there on the screen. Another great resource, Discovering the Power of Purpose. Thank you, brother. You're an inspiration, and I know you've got a fast track. We'll catch up a little bit later. Best to you. Everything working out with your move?
Everything's working out. I'll get the information to the producers.
Okay.
Those that want to be on that weekly mentoring call, you call the station, they'll give you the information.
Thanks, pal. Good to see you.
God bless.
God bless. All right, Paul Kreitz. Again, Paul Kreitz, CRITES.com. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.